Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting fractions, Chapter 2, Lesson 5. This is where we're kind of getting into the meat of this chapter. So you may want to go really slow, rewind, recheck, and re-listen to some sections until you're sure you've got it down solidly. This is an area that I've seen students have a lot of problems with in the past, and it's really common on standardized tests. To start, we're going to work with two fractions that have the same denominator, 3/4 and 2/4. The only way you're allowed to add fractions together or subtract them is if they have the same denominator. If they don't have the same denominator, you can't add them, you can't subtract them, you're only going to make mistakes. Please make sure you have that down. If you're forgetting it, write it down 100 times, tattoo it on the inside of your eyelids, whatever you need to do. But you've got to remember, unless the fractions have the same denominator, you cannot add or subtract them. When we do add or subtract fractions, if they have the same denominator, or I should say once they have the same denominator, all we're going to do is deal with the numerator. We're going to add our numerators together. 3 plus 2 gives us 5. The denominator does not change. Do not add the two denominators together. Do not combine them in some way. The denominators were the same before, and they're going to stay the same after. So we get an answer of 5/4. Now if we were going to turn that into a mixed number, this would be the part where we would do 5 divided by 4, which will give us 1 and 1/4. Sometimes it's going to be really helpful to convert your fractions into mixed numbers. Sometimes it's going to be much more convenient to leave them as fractions. I'll try and give you a warning as to which I'm looking for, depending on what the problem is and what sort of work we're doing. Now let's try one that's a subtraction problem. The idea here is still exactly the same. The denominators are the same, which means we're allowed to add or subtract them. 7/8 minus 3/8, we just subtract our numerators. 7 minus 3 gives us 4. Our denominator stays exactly the same as an 8, 4/8. Now this is the part where we use what we've learned earlier in the chapter, because we see that 4/8 is not in simplest form. You always want to put your fractions into simplest form. It's going to make them so much easier to work with. So again, we're going to find the greatest common factor of 4 and 8. Obviously that's going to be 4. 4 divided by 4 gives us 1, and 8 divided by 4 gives us 2. So 4/8 in simplest form is 1/2. Now we're going to make things a little bit tougher. This sort of problem is where we're going to combine everything we've learned so far in this chapter and mesh them all into one process. So again, 3/4 plus 2/3. This is a problem. We cannot add fractions together if they don't have the same denominator. Please don't try. We have to give them the same denominator. Now, if you think back a few lessons to when we did least common denominator, this is going to be really easy. So let's write out our multiples of 4. And our multiples of 3. You'll notice that I stopped when I got to 12 here. This is the advantage of having a good sense of your multiplication facts. If you know all your multiplication facts, as I was writing these 4s, I went 4, 8, 12, boom. I know right away that 12 is also a multiple of 3. So I can stop right there and not have to keep writing numbers. As you get better and better at multiplication, this is going to get easier and easier for you. So we have our least common denominator of 12. Just like we did 2 lessons ago, we're now going to turn these two fractions into fractions that have 12 as a denominator. So 3/4, we want it to become something with 12 as a denominator. So we ask, what did we multiply our denominator by? 4 times 3 gave us 12. Whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. 3 times 3 is 9. With 2/3, we multiplied both fractions by 4. to get to 12. 2 times 4 is 8. So now we're going to rewrite our original problem using our two new fractions, 9/12 and 8/12. I know this is a lot of steps, so make sure you're staying with me. If you have to go back and rewind and rewatch things, that's okay. 9/12 plus 8/12. We've just taken the fractions we had originally, changed them so they have the same denominator, and rewritten the problem so that they have the same denominator, so that now we're allowed to add them together. Because the denominators are the same, we're allowed to add them together. 9/12 plus 8/12, we just add our numerators, we get 17. The denominator stays the same, it's a 12. Again, we're not completely done yet because we're going to want to turn this into a mixed number. 17 divided by 12, 12 goes in one time, with 5 left over, so that becomes 5/12. So our answer here is 1 and 5/12. No, that was a lot of work, but it's something you have to know how to do. As you get better and better at these, you're going to find little tricks, little shortcuts that will make this all go faster. But for now, I really want to see all this work for every single problem. Now let's try a problem with subtraction. Again, the denominators are not the same, 5/6 minus 1/8. 6 and 8 are not the same, so we cannot just subtract like it is. We have to first convert these fractions, find equivalent fractions so that they have the same denominator. We start by finding the least common denominator. Again, my knowledge of multiplication facts lets me know as I'm going through that 24 is a multiple, of both. So I stop there. If your multiplication facts are not as strong yet, first of all, I encourage you to practice. But second of all, it's still going to be okay. It's just going to take you a little bit more work. It's going to take you a little bit more time. Now we take that 24 and we're going to find our equivalent fractions. 5/6 equals how many 24ths? And 1/8 equals how many 24ths? 6 times what gives us 24? The answer is 4. So we're going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 4 and get an answer of 20 24ths. 1/8. How many times can 8 go into 24? Again, we're going to do a little multiplication. 8 times 3 is 24. 1 times 3 is 3. Now that we have our equivalent fractions, we're just going to rewrite the problem as it was. 5/6 becomes 20 24ths. 1/8 becomes 3 24ths. Now we have the same denominator. We have easy work. We just subtract across the numerators. 20 minus 3 gives us 17. Our denominator stays the same. 24. There's our answer, 17 24ths. Now I'd like you to try and solve this problem on your own. Hit pause now, and when you hit play, I will show you how to solve the problem. 2/3 plus 3/7 equals 1 and 2/21. Watch my work and see if you can figure out how I did it. We found our least common multiple, our least common denominator, which was 21. We found our equivalent fractions, which were 14 21ths and 9 21ths. We added them together and got 23 21ths, and then converted our fraction into a mixed number, 1 and 2 21ths. If you got that right, great job. If not, go back, look at my work, look at your work, and see if you can find where you made a mistake. This time I'd like you to try a division problem on your own. 4/5 minus 1/10. Hit pause now, solve the problem, and when you hit play, I will give you the answer. The answer to this problem is 7/10. 4/5 minus 1/10 equals 7/10. We start by finding our least common denominator, which was 10, then converting to find our equivalent fractions, which are 8/10 and 1/10. Remember, the 1/10 stays the same because it already has a denominator of 10. Then we subtract 8/10 minus 1/10, which gives us an answer of 7/10. If you got that right, great job. If not, go back, check your work, and see if you can find where you made your